a little information. I think you're going to find that they are shredding ballots because they have to get rid of the ballots because the ballots are unsigned. The ballots are corrupt. And they're brand new and they don't have seals. And there's a whole thing with the ballots, but the ballots are corrupt. And you're going to find that they are, which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk. But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country because, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake. I don't know. A lot of people think it wasn't a mistake. It was much more criminal than that.
Here in the U.S., the Department of Homeland Security is warning of a potential troubling escalation in tactics from right-wing extremists. Catherine Herridge has more on this, and she joins us from Washington. Catherine, we understand the power grid could be a target?
Good morning. According to the intelligence report obtained by CBS News, these groups have developed credible and specific plans to attack the power grid since at least 2020 as a way to disrupt the country and the ability of government to operate. The report warns extremists adhering to a range of ideologies will likely continue to plot and encourage physical attacks against power networks, which include more than 6,400 plants and nearly 500,000 miles of high-voltage lines. While the bulletin emphasized small-scale attacks are unlikely to cause widespread power loss, it may cause disruption to critical infrastructure like hospitals and police departments. Homeland Security noted several indicators, including online chatter.
Marco Farrell recording that wall of water. The Thomas Fire, largest in California history, denuded the nearby hills of vegetation and anything that would absorb the water. Many did not heed the voluntary evacuation warnings. Given the freak nature of the downpour, it might not have mattered anyway.
They screwed up big time. They should have said anyone in the floodplain should get the hell out. Almost an unbelievable scene for thousands of Maryland residents. Raging waters filling the streets of their town, Ellicott City.
Oh my God!
Crumbling houses. And smashing car after car.
They're all going down.
Tossing them like toys. It happened so fast, a torrential downpour, more than 8 inches of rain in just 3 hours.
Ellicott City is the strongest community I've ever been a part of. We're going to rebuild this place the best we can.
Hurricane Florence now crashing into the Carolina coast as fears of catastrophic flooding have already been realized. Winds now ranging up to 90 miles per hour, so strong the roof of this gas station collapsed. That roof then blowing away. Take a look at the waves crashing inside this home in North Topsail Beach.
Now it seems the 500-year floods come every other year. How do you plan for that?
When Beatrice was created, Milan's chief executive, Senator Manchin's daughter, Heather Bresch, got a $31 million payout. During her time as CEO, Bresch drew outrage when the company raised the price of its life-saving EpiPen, used by millions to reverse fatal allergic reactions, when they raised the price by 400%. After the merger, Beatrice immediately began to cut costs, and now the plant is set to close on Friday.
And that over 10 years is $6 trillion, right? $6 trillion. And we're talking about
how much do you think that we spend every year on non-discretionary, basically non-defense?
Not
just
enough.
as much.
Really not enough.
Do you know we pay? Let me just give you all this.
But I'm just saying we can we can afford
Let me
this.
just tell you, let me give you one little bit of information, okay? So,
Wait, I got one little bit of information for you. The Republicans are likely to take over the Senate. We don't. This is our one chance right now to pass the legislation.
If we don't do it right, do you think they won't repeal it as soon as they take over?
If you don't pass this, we're going to
Yeah, they're not going to pass things like this for the people. They're not. This is our chance. We can't wait.
What would have happened if Trump had gotten away with his attempted coup on January 6th? What if he had pulled it off? Just yesterday, the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, said the dictator part out loud when he fantasized about the jailing of January 6 committee members, simply for trying to get to the bottom of Trump's insurrection.
I think when you have a Republican Congress, this is all going to come crashing down, and the wolves are going to find out that they're now sheep, and they're the ones who are, in fact, going to, I think, face a real risk of jail for the kind of laws they're breaking.
Jailing political opponents. Yes, that is one thing that happens when democracy dies. Why stop at Congress, Newt? What's next, judges? Yes, when a would-be dictator seizes power, anything goes at that point. There goes the January 6th investigation. Like the Republican Party is going to stop him? Certainly not the 147 Republicans in the House and Senate who still voted to overturn the election results even after the attack on the Capitol. Those lawmakers could have turned to the Trump team plan for bogus alternate electors outlined in recent days by Trump advisor Boris Epshteyn, which sounds like another scheme Trump advisor Peter Navarro dubbed the Green Bay sweep.
The plan was simply this. We had over 100 congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill ready to implement the sweep. The sweep was simply that. We were going to challenge the results of the election in the 6 battleground states.
Now, unfortunately, the Green Bay sweep was about as successful as Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And then there's the draft executive order now in the hands of the January 6th committee to have the military seize voting machines, you know, like one would do in a coup.
We have information that between the Department of Justice, a plan was put forth to potentially seize voting machines in the country and utilize Department of Defense assets to make that happen.
Next, I suppose the dictator would just send out his minions to claim that he won fair and square, sort of like how his ally Sidney Powell was lying about things just after the election.
President Trump won by not just hundreds of thousands of votes, but by millions of votes that were shifted by this software that was designed expressly for that purpose.
What about all of that violence on January 6th? Seems plausible. An even more Trumpy Justice Department wouldn't be pursuing any prosecutions. There would be no sedition charges, at least not for the insurrectionists. True, some people would see their reality with their own eyes, just how bad it was. But Trump would have a propaganda outfit to let the American people know it wasn't that awful. Now, who would that be?
Oh, it was an insurrection. So how many of the participants in that insurrection have been charged with insurrecting, with sedition, with treason? 0.
Thus, no one has been charged with sedition or insurrection. Most have been hit with charges like parading. Parading. Who knew that was a crime? By the way, it should be. I hate parades.
What would the world be like if Trump had pulled it off in the weeks that followed? The dictator would have continued to hold his rallies. January 6th gaslighting would become reality, and reality would become gaslighting.
Believe me, there was a lot of love and a lot of friendship and people that love our country. These are great people.
But there would be other news outlets where you could find the truth, right? Well, now they don't do the free press in autocracies. Just ask Trump's friends in Saudi Arabia or Russia. But there still would be state television. You would just have to watch segments on how candy just isn't as sexy as it used to be.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal.
It's about as creepy and dystopian as it gets.
Inside a stunning new pressure campaign as President Trump tries to overturn his election defeat.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
NBC News obtained the full audio from an hour-long Saturday phone call with the president, Trump advisors, and Georgia election officials.
I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it.
Exerting the influence of the presidency, Mr. Trump leaned on Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to announce a reversal of certified Georgia results from Biden to Trump.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Raffensperger refused.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
In another tense exchange, the president pushed a conspiracy theory that a voting machine company tampered with ballots, even suggesting state officials hid illegal activity.
Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that?
Georgia lawyer Ryan Germany shot that down.
No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
But have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure.
The president threatened that Georgia officials could face legal trouble themselves.
You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk.
Piling on partisan guilt.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, I know you don't.
Tonight, a Biden senior advisor described the call as irrefutable proof of a president pressuring and threatening an official of his own party to get him to rescind a state's lawful, certified vote count and fabricate another in its place.
And Kelly's with us. There's an update on the effort by some Republicans to challenge the election in Congress this week.
In 2010, Sinema was elected to the Arizona Senate, and in 2012, she decided to run for a U.S. House seat.
Congress does nothing, or worse, bails out Wall Street and the powerful while we suffer. That's why I'm announcing today that I'm running for Congress. I'll stand up to the powerful in Washington.
Sinema won the race, which made her the first ever openly bisexual member of Congress. But once she got to Washington, her words about making Wall Street pay had seemingly been lost in transit, as her rebrand was about to take center stage. Sinema immediately went to work helping corporate lobbyists in Wall Street, two groups who were further marginalizing the marginalized communities she claimed she got into politics to protect. Sinema's ideological shift persisted as she advanced in political office. She advocated for cutting corporate taxes and regulations, and she approved a partial rollback of the 2010 financial overhaul known as Dodd-Frank. One bill supported by Sinema was literally written by Wall Street. The New York Times expands, in a sign of Wall Street's resurgent influence in Washington, Citigroup's recommendations were reflected in more than 70 lines of the House Committee's 85-line bill. Two crucial paragraphs, prepared by Citigroup in conjunction with other Wall Street banks, were copied nearly word for word. Lawmakers changed two words to make them plural. In 2015, Sinema, the former anti-war activist, bafflingly voted against the Iran nuclear deal, an arms control agreement that even the Pope backed. But that didn't mean much to Sinema, who said, yeah, I don't know him. That same year, Sinema voted to prevent the resettlement of Syrian and Iraqi refugees until tighter vetting processes were implemented. And Sinema's departure from everything she once stood for persisted. The Phoenix New Times notes, she introduced legislation aimed at cracking down on the U.S. visa waiver program, and was one of only 6 Democrats to vote to punish sanctuary cities. And she joined Republicans in passing bills intended to deregulate the banking industry and attack the Affordable Care Act's employer mandate. Sinema also voted in favor of the Make America Secure Appropriations Act, which included $1.6 billion in funding for the border wall. With Trump in office, Sinema voted in line with the stake man half of the time, according to 538. In 2018, Sinema decided to run for Senate. In the midst of her campaign, she once again went to bat for those who needed it most, Wall Street bankers. She voted to support the Crapo banking bill, co-authored by Senate Banking Committee Chair Mike Crapo. The bill undercut regulations and weakened consumer protections, including against discrimination. The New York Times said the bill removes protections for 25 of the top 38 banks. weakens regulations on the biggest players, and encourages them to manipulate regulations for their benefit, and saps consumer protections. With Sinema's help, the bill was signed into law. So why did Sinema, the one-time grassroots progressive activist who vowed to take on the wealthy, instead choose to protect them? The source of her campaign funds could provide a clue. She was one of the largest recipients of campaign money from the banking and finance sectors. From 2011 to 2020, Sinema has received over $1.9 million from the securities and investment sector and $422,000 from the commercial banking industry, or contributions she once referred to as bribery, just years prior. During her Senate campaign, Sinema raised over $22 million from various PACs, big tech companies, and deep-pocketed donors.
And over the years, I'm proud to say that I have taken the time to learn and grow and occasionally even change my opinion.
Sinema edged out Martha McSally in the U.S. Senate race and was sworn in on January 3, 2019. In the summer of 2020, Sinema's work alongside Republicans did not go unnoticed. She received awards from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for her exemplary leadership and bipartisanship. After Joe Biden took office and the Democrats and Republicans split a 50-50 Senate, Sinema made a move that would have seemingly disappointed her past progressive self very, very much. Sinema, who once doggedly fought for immigrants and refugees as a social worker and attorney, chose to side with Republicans in voting to block undocumented immigrants from receiving stimulus checks. And when it came to including the $15 minimum wage in the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package, Sinema told Politico, the minimum wage provision is not appropriate for the reconciliation process. It is not a budget item, and it shouldn't be in there. While Sinema deemed inclusion of the $15 minimum wage in the reconciliation process, which allows passage with 51 votes, or 50 and a tiebreaker from the vice president, inappropriate, she also doesn't believe in ending the filibuster, which calls for 60 votes in order to pass, requiring the support from at least 10 Republicans. Meaning, she seemingly doesn't support increasing minimum wages unless at least 10 Republicans sign on too. So with that, she walked into the Senate chamber, literally gave Mitch McConnell, the self-described Grim Reaper, a pat on the back, and gleefully voted against a livable wage. The move was somewhat surprising, considering Sinema's stance on the minimum wage in 2014, when she tweeted, "A full-time minimum wage earner makes less than $16K a year. This one's a no-brainer. Tell Congress to #raise the wage." Had she stuck by this sentiment, a majority of her state would have given her a pat on the back. According to one poll, 61% of Arizonans support raising the minimum wage, and had it advanced, roughly 839,000 workers in Sinema State would have seen a boost in pay.
Folks know in Arizona, I'll always put their interests first, never party.
I realized, if I do this thing where I'm constantly geofecting to the right, and I'm touting myself as someone who gets things done, as someone who's moderate, that's worked for me so far, so I'm going to keep doing it, and it did work for her. And there's really no incentive beyond her own political convictions, if she even has any anymore, to abandon that.
Sinema's political transformation may be complete. She's been able to advance her political career through gravitating towards positions that are important to the American people and crossing party lines in a way that is rarely seen in Washington.